people talk about doing predictions, that they can predict. And again, that's what math can do. Math can predict because, a simple example I always give, a car runs 50 miles per hour on a constant rate in a straight line. You can predict it's going to be 50 miles away, all else being equal. So you predict it. So what? Is that science? Well, that's what they call science. They say we can predict an eclipse tomorrow, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The moon goes between the Earth and the sun, and we have an eclipse. So they said 4 o'clock tomorrow, I can predict there's going to be an eclipse. Okay, so what? Is that science? I mean, all you did was describe. You're saying something's going to happen tomorrow. It's like you go to races and your mathematical buddy says, I predict that horse number 1 is going to win this race, 2-horse race. And I'm saying, look, and horse number 2 is much better, much faster. We know this for a fact. So I'm going to bet on horse number 2 because I know horse number 2 is going to win. There's no horse number 1. I predict horse number 1 is going to win. Okay, so each one places his bet, the horse is run, and horse number 2 is beating the crap out of horse number 1. I mean, by a mile. I mean, it's just a fast horse, right? And just about, a few yards before horse number 2 reaches the finish line, your buddy pulls out a gun and shoots him and kills the horse and the jockey. And horse number 1 just gallops in there and wins the race. So he's right. Yeah, he didn't have an explanation before. Now I got an explanation in retrospect. I know why horse number 1 is going to win the race, because he was going to shoot horse number 2, something I did not know was going to happen. He knew it. Okay. Okay, and this is the same thing with when you have an eclipse. As long as you say there's going to be an eclipse tomorrow at 4 o'clock, you haven't said anything. That's a description. We still don't know why that's going to happen. If you can explain why, you're no longer talking about a prediction. You're no longer talking about the future. Now you're talking about the past. Okay, explanations, we can only explain the past. Means that you're drawing on your memory, you're drawing on your experience of something you've already experienced or read about or know about. So you know that the moon goes around the earth and gets in front of the sun every now and then. That's when it causes an eclipse. That's the cause. Okay? So if you can explain that, you're talking about your past. You're talking about some experience you've already had with the phenomenon. But as long as you just say tomorrow at 4 o'clock there's going to be an eclipse, we still don't know why. And that's just a prediction. That's just a description. Only when you explain can you talk about the past. And it's no longer a prediction. Now you're talking about explanation. Explain, we can only explain consummated events. Okay? Okay, so what is a prediction? Well, here we have a little definition, typical one from the dictionary, nothing out of the ordinary. Okay? Predict, to declare or tell in advance, to prophecy, to foretell. Okay? Prediction, a statement about what someone thinks will happen in the future. Okay, so again, it's just a description. That's all it is. And, you can have an intelligent guess, right? You can say that's a prediction. You can also have, the owl and the astrologer and, tarot cards or whatever, palm reading, and do something else, and say that you got it from your prediction from somewhere else. I always say that when you go see an astrologer, someone who claims to predict, the future for you and read your palm or whatever, look at the zodiac or whatever. Very simple. Just ask them, please predict when I was born. I mean, if you can't predict something that's already happened, I doubt very much you can predict something that hasn't. Okay? So I always ask them, predict when I was born. Okay, and we have here someone who did suggested that we could conceivably, if we knew where every little atom in the universe was, we could predict, all future events. Okay, here we have, his name was Pierre Laplace, late 18th, beginning of the 19th century. Says, We may regard the present state of the universe as the effect of its past and the cause of its future. An intellect which at certain moment would know all forces that set nature in motion and all positions of all items of which nature is composed, it would embrace in a single formula the movements of the greatest bodies of the universe and those of the tiniest atom. For such an intellect, right, the devil, I guess, or the God, I don't know, nothing would be uncertain, and the future, just like the past, could be present before its eyes. And in a way, this wasn't an original thought. St. Augustine also thought of God as the God of time, like he had the whole block universe in front of him so he could see the future, the past, and tell you everything that happened and will happen just by looking at this thing. Like he was outside of time. God is the God of time, but he's also the God who is outside of time, right? Time does not affect him. In that sense, he's eternal, and so on. Those are the notions that Augustine had. One problem here, we get it from the bot, okay, R2D2. And what does R2D2 tell us? It says, prediction. Future events are inherently unpredictable. Okay, the world is complex and constantly changing, making it difficult to accurately forecast what will happen in the future. Okay, unforeseen events. We have unexpected events like global pandemics or technological breakthroughs can disrupt even the most well-considered predictions. And then he says also you have the human factor. Human behavior is unpredictable, so people do things, at the spur of the moment, and obviously, we cannot predict what everybody in the world, at least, will be able to do the next minute, right? So the bot is primarily thinking of living entities, and that's not really what the mathematicians are talking about. What they're talking about is inanimate objects, atoms. Can we predict those, right? Where the atom will be next. Now, remember, you have atoms in your body also, and so if you decide to move left instead of right because of just whim, well, then that atom goes with you. Okay, so you move the atom in the wrong way than it was predicted. So in that sense, yeah, I don't think you can predict, at least atoms belong to living entities. But if we just look at macro objects or atoms out there in space, like the universe, well, I think we can more or less, if we knew the direction which each atom is moving, and we know the location of every atom, I guess Laplace would be correct. We could predict, where it would be next, okay? But what's the issue? The issue is that we have rotten language from the mathematical establishment. And one of those words is predict, but it's not the only one. Here they are. We have the three misleading words of mathematical physics, and that's predict, observe, and discover. They observe, they can see something, right? Something happened. They don't understand squat. They saw something happen. They say, oh, let's try to explain that. And so they do what is known as a prediction in the religion of mathematical physics. What is a prediction? Well, prediction is really an assumption, and they call that a prediction. And then they do an explanation based on that assumption. They call that whole package a prediction. And when they go out there and they think they saw what they predicted, they say, oh, we discovered it, we found it, we proved it. Now it's a fact, okay, no longer a theory. That's more or less how it's handled. So let me summarize it here, okay. Let me get rid of this here. So we have this discovering, predicting, and observing. That's the language that the mathematicians use when they really mean assuming and explaining. So they use this misleading language. They say, oh, we predict, we observed, we discovered. And they're not talking about anything. Why do they use that language? They have to reinforce the fact that they're not just making an assumption. They're not just theorizing like, well, that's just a theory. No. They want to show you that they know, that they've proven, that they've got evidence. They got not only the equation, but they got the experiment to prove it. So they want to show you that they really know, that they really got it down pat. Okay? And so they have to do a prediction. And part of that predicting thing is the equation. You need to have that equation because people look at, mathematicians, other colleagues, right? They look at the equation and says, okay, this equation says that this is what's going to happen if we do this, this, and that. We fill it with so many variables, right? And so they say, okay, let's see if this is true. They go to the lab or to the field or whatever, and they run a test. Now they're observing or looking, they're saying, oh, we measure, right? And that's when they discover. They say, oh, we proved it. We discovered. And what they're really saying is we're making an assumption. We're making an assumption, for example, that we're dealing with particles. That's a big assumption. Quantum mechanics only makes one assumption. That's that they're dealing with particles. It's the particle hypothesis. And so no matter what, they always deal with particles. And everything is explained with particles. So guess what? Everything turns out to be particles. Even some of the equipment that they use, the photomultipliers, photosensitometers, and so on, they're built to count blips as particles. So it's all particles, no matter what. And so it's not surprising that all the theories have particles in them, partly because they can model a particle, the location of a particle, the mass, the charge, whatever, with equations. They have a single point. And so this point, this location here, this thingy that we can't see that we think is a particle, it's got this charge, this mass, it's got this spin, all the good stuff. So they assign all these properties to that location, to that point, which they assume is a particle. And when you ask them, what's a particle? Well, that's when Carlo Rovelli tells you there are no particles in quantum mechanics. And people like Arvin Ash and Sean Carroll, they tell, well, they're all fields, vibrational fields, whatever that means, so you get all these runarounds. And they talk about proving and knowing. Why? Because they're really trying to persuade, convince you that they're right, that they're correct, and that you are a dumbass, that you don't know anything. They try to convert you, and a lot of people just get swayed and follow the buffalo herd, and they get recruited. They form part of the congregation. And then you have to put up with them coming over here. And a lot of these people, they come in here and they start talking about mass and energy and, all these words that they use, force and time. A fellow was talking the other day about currents. He says the current in the vortex. And I said, okay, what physical object is in the vortex, is causing this vortex? What physical object is causing the current of all this material that you're saying is being taken by the current? He talked about the flow as if a flow is a physical object. And of course, he couldn't answer the question. He ran away with the tail between his legs because he has no answer. They're all talking about these abstractions that were fed to them by the mathematicians in high school and in college, and that's all they talk about. And instead of understanding that you can't do physics without an object, you absolutely need an object. Period. We're done. You can't do. Any rational person, right, sees this happening, right? We're going to do a little magic trick here. We call it gravity, right? We let go of this and it falls to the ground. And it always falls to the ground. And so you say, well, nothing seems to be in contact with this thingy. So all we have is the Earth and this. That's the whole system. You can have an astronaut and the Earth. The astronaut falls to Earth. The system is astronaut and Earth. That's it. Why does he fall to Earth? Why does that fall to the center of the Earth? And immediately they start moving into, well, the mass, the density, the volume. You start talking about math. No, I don't care about your stupid math. Keep it to yourself. I need to know what physical entity brought it down. And any rational individual, if you're a rational individual, you know that something is in contact with this thing for it to come down. There is no such thing as action at a distance, because action at a distance is the scientific term for witchcraft and black magic. It's voodoo science. You pinch the doll and the other guy gets hurt. Yeah, by what mechanism? How do you connect this event, this phenomenon with that event over there. And to say that, look, every time I pinch the doll whenever I want, this guy feels the pain everywhere in his body. And there's no connection between the doll and the person. There's nothing there. And a lot of people actually believe this nonsense that, all these concepts flow through the air. And that's when the mathematicians come in and they say, well, it's the energy, it's the mass, it's the charge. They bring all these concepts and treat them as physical objects. People think they got an explanation when they have not.